Welcome to The Explainer. Let's just jump right in, because we've got a genuinely thrilling case study today from Tech Reader magazine. Set in the very near future, 2026, we're looking at what actually happens when a swarm of AI cracks open a massive, completely untouched digital time capsule. It's a fascinating look at where cutting-edge AI collides with the ancient, invisible infrastructure that literally runs our modern world.
For 3 whole decades, a monumental financial system sat entirely unexamined, just running, silently, flawlessly, right in the background of a major corporation. I mean, really think about that, 30 years. That means this system predates the modern internet, cloud computing, smartphones, the whole shebang. And yet, it remained the beating financial heart of a massive company, basically untouched because the folks who originally built it had long since retired or just moved on.
But here's where it gets wild. What human engineers literally couldn't untangle in 30 years, a parallelized AI agent swarm mapped out in exactly 19 minutes. Yeah, 19 minutes to illuminate a black box that had been locked tight for a generation. That stark contrast, 30 years of accumulated opaque complexity up against just 19 minutes of coordinated machine intelligence, well, that is the absolute foundation of our explainer today.
So, picture this. We start our narrative in an incredibly tense conference room up on the 14th floor. A CTO, a CISO, and a junior architect are sitting there in total silence. They're watching an AI agent swarm operate in read-only forensic mode on a system that is actually older than a lot of the employees working in their building. Now, the CTO, she's overseen multiple modernizations before, but never anything like this. They are finally, turning the lights on in the basement. And the stakes here? Incredibly high. Why were they so terrified to touch it for so long? Because this legacy system is responsible for safely processing $4.2 billion in transactions every single year. And in its 3 decades of existence, it has never, not once, missed a payroll run. When you've got a system managing that kind of money flawlessly, you treat it with a very specific, quiet kind of professional anxiety.
To really put the scale of this problem into perspective, they are staring down 4.7 million lines of code, written by people who are long gone. The last person who truly understood the underlying architecture actually retired back in 2011 and left behind a binder that no one can even locate anymore. Consulting firms either quoted just laughable, sky-high prices or produced reports telling the CTO what she already knew: handle with extreme care. So within minutes, the AI swarm maps out this bizarre cathedral constructed from 7 entirely different programming languages. We're talking foundational COBOL, RPG, JCL scripts, and PL/I from a 1994 acquisition. It even finds fragments of ancient assembler code, and, fascinatingly enough, a dead proprietary 4th-generation language from a vendor that was acquired, reacquired, and then just completely vanished over 20 years ago.
Which brings us to a concept the entire tech industry quietly relies on, yet pretty much never talks about in boardrooms: the strategy of not looking. It's essentially reverse archaeology. The strategy goes like this: if we don't look at it, it'll probably just keep running. And honestly, it's not negligence. Actually, it's a completely rational organizational response to inheriting massive, opaque complexity.
It's exactly like reverse archaeology. The source perfectly points out that you don't excavate a site that is still occupied. You absolutely do not knock down load-bearing walls just to see what's inside them, right? And over decades, that extreme caution transforms the entire codebase into an untouchable black box. It becomes a monument you respect simply because you don't fully understand it.
Moving into part 1, the swarm intervention. Let's see what happens when AI maps the unknown and finally builds a bridge into that black box.
What's so wild about this is the sheer capability of the swarm. Like, a standard AI model can read a modern codebase, sure, but 4.7 million lines across 7 ancient languages? That pushes way beyond a single model's context window. This requires coordinated parallel agents working simultaneously. But crucially, the AI is operating strictly in read-only forensic mode. It isn't touching or rewriting the production code. It's simply reading, tracing those deep dependencies, and, perhaps most importantly, flagging exactly what it does not know.
So as the tension in that 14th floor conference room peaks, we hit part 2, ghosts in the codebase, unearthing decades of secrets. What exactly did the AI find hidden inside this massive system?
Well, in just a matter of minutes, the swarm flagged 847 entirely undocumented subroutines. That's 847 separate, active pieces of code with absolutely no known references and 0 documentation. Every single one of those represents a structural question the organization simply stopped asking years ago.
Then, right at minute 7 of the audit, the AI surfaces something just incredible. It finds a dormant-looking but highly active module literally named temporary fix old. Based on compiler artifacts, the AI estimates this was a temporary patch slapped together back in 1991. Today? Well, today, that quote-unquote temporary fix is quietly processing over $1.1 billion in annual adjustments. No author, no documentation, unbelievable.
And oh, it gets better. Buried deep inside that temporary patch from 91 is this single, hard-coded, completely unexplained number, 0.003478. No label, no context whatsoever. Yet this completely anonymous string of digits has been quietly running the company's financial calculations for 33 years, and no one, not the CTO, not the internal auditors, had ever looked directly at it until this exact moment.
The suspense dials up even further at minute 11. The swarm is comparing the system's known dependencies against a terrifying new discovery. The AI uncovers an unidentified external socket connection on port 4417 that has been sitting in the code since 1998. Every single night for 28 years, this system reaches out across the internet to a dead, unresolved legacy IP block. Nobody knows what data it's trying to transmit or what would happen if they just blocked the port. The ghosts are officially out of the machine.
That brings us to part 3, the parallel path, the aftermath of the audit. Now that the black box is open, how does leadership actually fix this infrastructure?
The CTO realizes instantly that she cannot just shut the system down and swap it out like an old laptop. The source uses this fantastic analogy. You don't want to do surgery on a marathon runner mid-race, right? I mean, the legacy system is old, yes. It's opaque, for sure. But it is not sick. It's running perfectly. Mistaking those 3 facts for the same thing would be a catastrophic leadership failure.
So the absolute crucial point here is that responsible modernization requires immense patience. They aren't just scheduling a cutover for a weekend. Instead, they build a parallel path. They build the new system right alongside the old one. Then, they feed both systems the exact same inputs and compare every single transaction for months, watching for even the slightest rounding difference or timing anomaly. They'll execute the cutover only when the new system completely earns the exact same pristine track record the old one built over 30 years.
Let's wrap this up with part 4, the leadership question, calibrating trust in the age of AI.
At the end of the audit, the AI spits out a 340-page report. But here's the massive takeaway. The AI didn't magically solve the legacy code problem. It didn't fix a single line of code. Rather, it provided a map that finally allowed the executives to make informed decisions instead of just relying on the strategy of continued ignorance. It didn't panic, it didn't quit, it just looked, and it gave human judgment the raw materials it so desperately needed.
This really highlights the core leadership question of the AI era, which is all about calibrated trust. As a leader, you've got to avoid blind trust, but you also can't afford the cost of continued ignorance anymore. You know, the most valuable AI systems aren't the ones that claim to know everything. They're the ones that explicitly flag what they do not know. Leadership today requires figuring out which intelligence to rely on, how much to trust it, and making sure you independently verify those critical anomalies.
The AI swarm can perfectly map the architecture. It can hunt down the deepest, most hidden anomalies. But I want to leave you with this one provocative thought. When the AI uncovers a 33-year-old mystery number that's quietly handling $1 billion, whose job is it to finally solve it? The AI can help pry open the black box. But ultimately, that question and the heavy responsibility of answering it belongs to a human. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning what's running quietly in the background.